Another thing you mentioned was policies. And I know I've heard, for example, that you want to somehow make the policies around your work very explicit and transparent. In Scrum, there's something called definition of done, which is kind of related to this. But in Kanban, I think the idea is more flexible and covers more kinds of things. So I'm just wondering, what is it about the Kanban method and policies? How does that affect like the way a team works or the way that management works with teams?
Let's first understand policies as the rules of the game. So we want to know what to do and how to better behave so we can increase the local productivity and efficiency and deliver things on time. Now, the very first one, an important criteria is instead of doing a push process, we would use a pull criteria. So what is the point of doing lots of things if the other end downstream cannot handle that much of information or that much of work? What is the point of creating a huge documentation if nobody's going to need? So it's working towards the goal and delivering what is necessary to satisfy the client that will make your process free of wastes, or at least it will reduce the problems that we have and see. Now, why is this important as a policy? Because that idea of being busy, and because I'm busy, I'm being very productive, that is incorrect. So you can have lots of free time, but you're delivering what is important in the right moment. So the work synchronized, that would be one important part. Another one is also understanding the idea of classes of service. So there are different types of work. The most common one are the urgent ones, and they are called the expedited items. So it's the moment that someone requests something right away, maybe because they have to comply with some regulation, maybe because it was a security problem and you have to address that thing right away. So those things cannot wait. So an important thing is, although we cannot predict those things, we make room for those unpredictable work so they don't affect what we're currently delivering. That's the important thing. So how can we do this? The Kanban method has some moments and ceremonies, which we're going to talk more later, but we make room for exception and expedited work that comes. The other types of work will be, for example, fixed date. Maybe we have something that we have to deliver by next Friday. Maybe we have something that must be delivered in 15 days. So being aware of those elements, we can focus and find the best way to organize the work so we can deliver things on time. And this is the key word, doing and delivering things on time.
Okay. So, like, you mentioned fixed date, you mentioned expedite. So, in terms of like, how does this relate exactly to the idea of a policy? I get the idea of expedite, I get the idea of fixed date, but like, what does the team or the management do in terms of a policy around that?
So every time someone comes to a team, they come with their background and the things they learn from the team. But a few things of the way of working is written nowhere. So
Mm,
the idea of policies is to make explicit what are the key important things that the team have to follow in order to get the work done. So what to do, how to do, in a very simple way, removing all the misconceptions, removing all the past terrible experiences. So they can experiment, they can be creative, they can do whatever it's necessary following some specific policies or the new standards, new ways of working.
okay. You mentioned expedite class of service and you mentioned fixed date class of service as part of discussing policies. So, how would you create a policy to help a team distinguish between those two things or other classes of service? Like, what does a policy look like?
A policy looks like a simple document that is written what the team has to follow. So every time we have a policy in place, it is what do you do if an expedited item comes? So do you invite your colleagues to discuss how you're going to organize the work? Or you could say you increase the capacity, you invite others to come to your team so the work can be delivered on time. Okay, this is what the policy looks like. So depending on how the work arrives, you have a few guidelines for you to get the work done.
So a policies then is a little bit like an if-then document. If this happens, then do this. If this other thing happens, do this. Right? I'm a programmer, so
That is also known as a response plan. So if something happens, that's how you should behave.
okay.
But not only that. So again, think like driving a car. So you have to follow some rules for every stage in the process or in the workflow. You have some rules that you have to follow. Those policies are going to make explicit. And again,
Okay.
we are streamlining a process, increasing efficiency, removing things that don't exist.
Gotcha.
So let's make sure that everyone understands and what is important to keep there.
Cool.